So let's move on to this second session. So my name is James. I'm on the Early Career Mathematicians Committee. I used to be the events leader, so for those who go to IMA events, you may well have seen me crop up in a similar position like this. So I'm joined here by Chris and Nira, who I'm sure you all know. And when we were discussing about what to do for this event, this came up really as something which is quite important to try and get a conversation around. And in this now 25-minute session, we are going to try and discuss a little bit about AI, about maths identity. These things have already come up today quite a lot, and hopefully maybe you all have some questions. I have some. So I'm going to pass it over there so we don't waste any time. So Chris, please.
Oh, hi. So I'm Chris Budd, and I dread to think how long I've been a member of the IMA. I was at one point vice president of the IMA. I was one of the organisers of the 50th anniversary, obviously exactly 10 years ago. I'm a huge supporter of the IMA. And for my day job, I work at the University of Bath. I, for many years, worked in mathematical modelling. I'm more transferring now over to the dreaded subject of machine learning and the links between the two. And I'm also passionately interested in outreach and maths education.
Hello, my name is Nira. I am the past president of the IMA. I've been a member of the IMA since about 1997. My day job, I work for a multinational engineering company as the global go-to mathematical consultant. And yeah, it sounds cool. Global go-to mathematical consultant. There you go. And song from the 80s. Don't get me singing. All right, so, and yes, I'm also the chair of the Black Heroes of Mathematics Conference. Yeah.
So before I open up the floor to questions, I think I want to ask each of them one thing in particular to try and drive the conversation. So Chris, I want to start with you. We've had a conversation in the past about like the IMA's involvement in like the community, and would you be able to share a little bit about the special interest groups?
Yeah, well, I can talk about one in particular. So the IMA has decided, and I think very wisely, to set up special, very, very inclusive special interest groups to address big areas of societal need and societal challenge, and to use, to be honest, the raw power that we have in the IMA membership to make a change for the better. So the special interest group, which I can particularly talk about, is the one on climate change and sustainability. So we all talk about climate change, and the IMA obviously should be doing its best to reduce its climate impact, like trying to be green and everything it does. But I would argue that the IMA membership has a unique opportunity to make a huge difference to climate change, because we have in our audience real experts in climate science, in fluid mechanics, in mathematical modelling, in machine learning, all the things which we need to do climate forecasting well. And we also have experts in working with policy that can do that. So we want the special interest group to kind of try to be a way of focusing all of that. There are other special interest groups. There's one on, I believe, on ED&I being formed, and there are other on AI. And these are really good areas. If you think there's a burning area where you should have a special interest group, let us know.
And how do you join these groups?
So they're so new, we haven't really got them sorted. So the special interest group in climate, we've got a committee that's running it. As soon as that's ready, there'll be a big article in Maths Today, and that will tell you how to join it.
So I'm hoping for some questions regarding the interest group and climate change and how AI can impact that, but we'll get to that. And my question for Nira, at the strategy event, when we were having this discussion, a lot of the time maths identity came up. And I wanted you just to say a few words about like how you believe the maths identity crisis is unfolding for mathematicians, and do you have any positivity words going forward?
Okay, first things first, right? And we have to, as mathematicians, we have to stop apologizing for being mathematicians, full stop. And let's say, yeah, and first things first, and can I stand up and say this? Mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the world. I wanted to say that. Mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the world. And when you go into schools, you say that mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the world. When you go to your clients, you say that mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the world. When you go to the government department, when you see the Prime Minister, I saw the Lord Mayor one time, and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a mathematician." And he said, "Why?" Because I said that mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the world. We should not be apologizing for being mathematicians. Mathematicians have done so much great things for this world, for this society, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So just remember, mathematics is indisputably the greatest subject in the...
So we've now got our social media sorted for like the next year. You think that's rehearsed, but it's not. So that, you know. So audience, I think we are happy to take questions. I can see there is an esteemed gentleman with a hand up. So
Thanks for that, Nira. I think that's a really important point. How do we turn that into creating some more Hannah Fries in the way that physics has done for years and years and years? How do we, as a community, avoid this notion that mathematicians are boffins who do stupid things and need proper human beings in order to talk to the media and the world? How do we have a strategy for getting that message out there, as well as, this will come up with the maths anxiety that's coming, the point that Ronnie made this morning, which I'd not heard before, but I thought was fantastic, that maths as a language, none of us are fluent. And how do we get across that that doesn't mean that maths still isn't great, and that we aren't all mathematicians, even if we can understand just a little bit?
Okay, for the benefits of the cameraman, I'll remain sitting down. I apologise, cameraman. All right. Okay. Everybody here, has a unique mathematical journey and experience, and it is important. It's important that we go to the primary schools, we go to the secondary schools, and we tell them, those children, about our journey, our experience of mathematics. Last year, part of Black History Month, I remember being invited to go to a school in Brixton being predominantly made up of African Caribbean children. Who was there the previous year? Stormzy. Now, if Stormzy keeps on going into those schools, what are you going to produce? Loads of Stormzy. I went in there and I told them about mathematics, and what they said? You're better than Stormzy. So if Stormzy can rap about that, you know what I mean? That's what you do. You've got to go to those schools. We can't sit down and say what we're going to do. This is the children. I don't want to say, you said I'm doing the 80s song, the children are the future. I believe the children are the future. Yeah, we've got to go to those children and tell them about mathematics, about your journey, because they want to hear that. And they're going to say why, they want to challenge you, but they want to hear your story. Everybody can do that. In this room, we can pick a school and do that.
Well, I'm just saying, I utterly agree with Nira. Go to schools, go to science festivals, come to the Bath Science Festival, which is Friday and Saturday this week. But there's another thing. I'd like to give a practical piece of advice. There's only one Nira. I know he's big and he gets lots of, presents. There's only one of him. There's only one of me. But we have a huge resource. We have our membership, and we have in our universities, if you're at a university, all your math students. And 25 years ago, I set up a course at Bath called Communicating Maths. And every year we train about 50 undergraduates to go into schools. And they go into schools and they're bright, they're young, they're diverse. They're not white, old, middle-aged men like me. They break the image of the boffin, and they're free. So they go into schools, they do wonderful stuff, and there's lots of them. So I would encourage everyone to use their students in that way. They're a fantastic resource.
Thank you both. Question over here.
Right. So I was just going to talk about climate change, if that's not premature. I mean, how is AI going to help solve climate change problems?
So we have these big climate models, and they're okay, but they could be a lot better. And they can be a lot better by using much better use of data. And there's an enormous amount of climate which we don't understand. And it's quite hard to model because it's so complex. But this is where AI can learn from the data and work alongside the physical models to build much better models by the combination of the physical modeling and much better use of data.
I understand the point you're making, but when it actually comes to the crunch, when we get that feedback from AI, we're then actually going to act on whatever information we're getting back from these models.
Well, once you've got the predictions from the models, it is our job to go and work with policymakers. And so we have the IPCC, but it's still our job. Write to your local MP. So I'll be seeing my local MP on Saturday to talk to her about climate change. So again, the special interest group is partly designed to empower membership to work with policymakers.
Thank you.
Help. Thank you. I'm Della Fries from the Science Council. So I'm talking to somebody who started out in mathematics and mathematics teaching, but I have to confess then did wander off into social science. But as I'm sitting listening to both the EDI session and this session now, I keep feeling over and over again what people are talking about is behaviour change. So although I'm having a fabulous, fabulous day here, it feels like coming home, being surrounded by mathematicians, and I'm absolutely loving being part of this community. And you're absolutely right, this community has so much brilliance to offer the world. I feel like if it stays in a bubble, it can't offer the world that brilliance, because that brilliance has to prompt behaviour change in order to make progress with the kind of things you're working on. So my question is, could you systematically work with behavioural scientists so that your brilliance is helped to be connected to actual behaviour change?
I think that's a fantastic point, a fantastic question. I think one of the big challenges of mathematics, and something I'm seeing happening now, is the understanding that we need to use maths in a social context and work with social scientists. We're actually running a workshop next week at the ICMS where half of the people there are social scientists and half are mathematical modelers. And Julia Gogg, who you may have heard of, who worked on SAGE, is kind of leading that. And COVID brought us much more into contact with social scientists, but I utterly agree. The more we can work with social scientists, the better. And I think that the more we can do that, the better. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I'm not going to get an apology from me. Yeah. See, what I'd say to answer that is, can we? Yes, because we already have been. If you go back to the 1970s, I can bring up an example of a gentleman named Schelling, who looked at the dynamics of segregation in in American cities. Again, taking mathematical principles, and you can go all the way back to Dumas, who's looking at the spending power of African Americans. So we have been, and we continue doing. The one thing about mathematics is, and you saw it, what David Abrams had in an article, is that we touch all of these different frontiers, and we're going to expand and touch on those frontiers. We're not going to remain here. We're going to expand out.
So I've got a tiny thing to add from my early career perspective, which is that coming back to this identity, mathematicians are seen as non-collaborators, right? I think we probably have all had this as we go on, and I ask the students that arrive at Sussex, and I say, what is your perspective of mathematician? They think it's someone who does write on a chalkboard but by themselves. And if we want to improve identity, I think collaboration is probably a really big part of that. Demonstrating that we're not just Isaac Newtons, if you like, which is what everyone sort of sees us as, I think will be really important. So to answer your question, collaboration is going to be really key going forward. We can't solve this problem ourselves because we got ourselves into it, but trying to collaborate out might be a really good spot. Does that answer the questions okay? Yeah, good.
Just on collaboration, I said earlier today we need a British version of the Big Bang Theory. Well, we just had a little rap from this gentleman here. It sounds like at least one remove he might know Stormzy. So why don't you sit down and write a rap with Stormzy about mathematics and the way it can touch and be used by young kids, Gen Z and lower kids, to trade on the stock market, to get a job, to do something practical that's going to improve their economic and health well-being. And if you could get that out, you know, we've got to use this digital social media now. I don't do it very well, but you know, every organisation like the Institute of Maths has got to get digitally social media aware and using it, because that's what everybody's using to become aware of things now.
Well, I'm not a rapper, but one of the things I do is I'm a science communicator, and I tend to, and for those who knows my style, is I tend to incorporate music into my presentation. So when I'm showing a simulation, everybody's like watching a simulation for 3 minutes. You actually see simulation with music, and the music's actually, and that has gone down very well on YouTube and other places. So definitely get your point of view. But if you want me to be a rapper, not a chance.
You don't want to say anything about being a rapper?
No, but I do workshops on maths and art, and they're very popular actually, and they bridge the gap. And maths and dancing, these are wonderful areas that mathematics can be involved in.
Social media, of course, has got to be something that the institution focuses on, but you know, I think it's the same for a lot of scientific industries, and in like the Institute of Maths, like we are a little bit behind, I think. So trying to improve on that will probably be a very positive thing.
Right. Are we doing one last one?
We've got 10 minutes according to my watch.
We've got 10 minutes. Oh, we've got even more. Right. So we'll go to
Just to follow up on the question that Stephen Lynch made in the previous session, one of the issues why we're not reaching school children is school teachers have no time. One of the reasons why my colleagues are not being engaged in outreach is they have no time. There are so many pressures on all of our times to organise these things. Are there smarter ways of getting the message out other than individual trips to schools, people coming to workshops? Can we be smart in doing this to reach society more than just at the individual enthusiastic person going into a school or having a workshop on dance?
And yes, I mean, there are charities out there that will work with you to minimise your time to make the biggest impact. This year, I did one virtual talk to 10,000 primary school students in East Anglia, and I got them jumping up and dancing to hip-hop music, even though I wasn't dancing. Do you know what I mean? But I was talking to them about the mathematics of a hip-hop dancer. But there are charities out there that will work with you and help you to actually do that, so you not individually have to be there. And I'm just mentioning one, and I know quite a number of others. So.
Well, I'm going to give two answers. The first is, with modern technology, we can get out there. Yesterday, I spoke to simultaneously every single school in Ireland. Because this week is Maths Week Ireland. There's an organisation there which sets up every school to do maths, and I went into every single one, and I just sat in my office in Bath and did it. So we have the technology. By the way, I talked about climate change. The other thing, how do I find time to do outreach? Because I make it part of my job, and the communicating maths course is allocated teaching time. So essentially, it's a course. I deliver like a course on anything else. And because it's that, I get my teaching time, I get resource, I get students. And if we can embed outreach and communication firmly into our curriculum, then we've got that easy resource to use.
I want to follow up from Alan's question, because I think it's very valid in that you're both quite clearly in very prominent positions to be able to do a lot of these things. So let's say for someone like me, what would be the first place to start? And two, do you know of any good resources or resource banks where you have games or hip hop, dance? Are there these free places that people can look at?
Well, one really good place to go for is the Maths Millennium Project, which is based in Cambridge and has a vast amount of material on the web you can use. Another is the Royal Institution, which has a vast amount of material. Also, there are these wonderful people out there. I think one of them's called Hannah Fry, I think. We've heard of Matt Parker. There are many others. Numberphile is another one where there's these amazing resources on the web that you can use.
And there's nothing, even you just can talk about your PhD and thinking, how can I explain my PhD to a primary school child? Or how can I explain what I worked to a primary school child? There's nothing stopping, with all those wonderful resources, but also to generate, and also what you find when you actually engage with these charities, they say, this is what we want you to communicate, and they will actually challenge you to communicate your message, and then all of a sudden you find yourself being a better science communicator, but it's all starting that process.
So I think we've got time for one more question. Yeah.
Can we do two? I've got two hands.
Yeah, I mean, you're in charge.
Yeah, well, no, you're really in charge.
Hi. Just one more point I'd like to make. I've been a private tutor for 26 years. My success rate as a private tutor is nearly 100%. I think what some children need, they need private tutoring in mathematics. It's the only way they get up to speed in time. And I know it's expensive, but what we might need is a scheme for helping more children in schools have the opportunity to get the private one-to-one tutoring they're not going to get from teachers in schools. Because it's really difficult in a school for a teacher to take one pupil aside. They have to teach at the average rate at which the class is learning.
I think I'm going to divert the question to the next session, because I suspect that if we were to improve maths anxiety and maths resilience, the need for tutors may not be so... I'm not trying to put you out of business, but you sound good though, 100%, but yeah, I think I want to divert it, unless anyone has something you say.
I'll just say one thing, that the Levelling Up scheme, which Tony over here launched, which the IMA is supporting, is trying to achieve something like this by using undergraduates as tutors.
Yeah, ditto, Tony Hill. There, give the man a round of applause.
And final question, I think. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks. I'm actually just a mum of a very enthusiastic 17-year-old who's come here today and is next door. And wow, what an amazing community. It's a real pleasure and honour to be here. My question is, well, two things. I just wanted to make a comment about the value, like we have a need for economic income, but also the value of maths for meeting a need to contribute to our society, but also the sheer passion, like you're all mathematicians because if you have a passion for your mathematics. My son is a mathematician because he has an innate passion for it and is prepared to put in a lot of work. And I just wanted to sort of reflect that back and the importance of that to initiate in our young people, those that have a propensity for mathematics, to have that passion sparked for them with our help. But the work that you do, how do you assess it in terms of its effectiveness before and after that can then go forward to influence things like policy around curriculum? Thanks.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an incredibly important question. I had to do a dreaded thing, which many people in the audience will know, called a ref impact case study, based on my work on public engagement. To assess it, we a lot of questionnaires went out to a lot of schools, and we asked the young people in particular and their teachers what the impact had been over many years of the work we were doing, and that's basically how we assessed it. There are other ways, like you can look at hits on YouTube channels, you can look at the number of reads that you get, but I think questionnaires are really the most effective way.
There's social media, but there's also personal. Because when a student sees you and hears you and you've changed their life, guess what? They will find you and they will tell you. I mean, recently I got an honorary doctorate at Portsmouth University, and thank you, another one. And then, yeah. Yeah. And I had did a talk 10 years previously in Birmingham, and there was a student who was graduated at Portsmouth University. Her and her family came up to me and it says, "Thank you, Dr. Chamberlain. Remember you speaking about mathematics 10 years ago." And because of that, I decided to do A-level mathematics, and I decided to go to Portsmouth University, and then she got her first class. And that's not the first time somebody has actually come up to me, yeah? You know, and so when you actually do those talks, you do get those personal testimonies that comes back. That's the most powerful statistic that you could ever have.
I was going to add, but I don't think I want to after that. So that was quite a nice way to finish, I think. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you all for coming.